Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show. Sons of Anarchy is a motorcycle club drama series from FX. It's just now starting its 7th season, and it's a tale of woeful misery, misplaced trust, lies, sex, murder, and family angst. All of the elements you need for a proper Shakespearean tragedy. And it is a Shakespearean tragedy. The entire show is loosely based on the concept of Hamlet, retold for the modern day, with a motorcycle gang, the Sons of Anarchy in the town of Charming, standing in for the royal court of the Kingdom of Denmark. The series revolves around the Teller family, most specifically Jax Teller. He's the prodigal son of the club founder JT. Now, JT was murdered by his wife Gemma, who's Layla of Futurama, and by his best mate, Clay, played by Hellboy, who also has now married Gemma and is now Jax's stepdad. See, it's just like Hamlet, you know. The main gist of the show is about Jax coming across a book written by his old fella, kind of a manifesto and a sort of clearing of his head, and that sets him off down the path of destruction as his loyalties begin to fray and everything slowly begins to spiral out of control. You see, the club isn't just a motorcycle club, it's a gang, and it's a front for a porn studio, a brothel or two, and a whole load of gun running for the real IRA. So watching the show, you never need to wait all too long before there's boobs, booms, and bodies all over the place. But the show's not just about the Teller family. You know, there's a matter of Jax's junky ex-girlfriend and baby mother Wendy, his new missus and love interest Tara, his best mate Opie, Opie's dad Piney, Chibs, Tig, Juice, Happy, Bobby, and the ex-charming police chief who's on the club payroll, Wayne. Now, I know, you're probably already confused, and that's okay. It took me about 3 series to actually remember all the character names, and that's not including the supporting cast, bit part players, guest stars, and the various members of the other motorcycle gangs like the Mayans and the Grim Bastards. Now the show's gotten to season 7, and to cut short a very long, intricate, complicated and messy story, here's a really quick and dirty rundown. See, first off, Jax gets hold of his dad's manifesto. Then, he ends up getting together with Tara, although that's only after murdering her stalker. But it turns out Tara doesn't really get on with Gemma, and the feeling's mutual. Agent Stahl, a bent ATF officer investigating the club, tries to frame Opie as a snitch, and Clay puts out a hit on him, but that ends up killing his missus. But Opie gets past this, and the ATF then puts things south with the IRA. And after a lot of confusion and bloodshed, the IRA ends up stealing Jack's baby son. So the club goes off to the Northern Ireland to nick him back, and then they end up getting their revenge on Stahl. But Jax finds even more incriminating evidence about his dad's murder from JT's bit on the side in Ireland, and that makes tensions fray even more. As even more incriminating stuff comes out, Clay ends up killing Piney, his old mate, and that sends Opie totally over the edge. And then Opie shoots and injures Clay, and they blame that on the rival gang, and the retribution for that shooting ends up killing the daughter of a local crime lord, and he demands Tig's head. But then Jax ends up outwitting him, and ends up freeing Clay for his murder in the process. Then he jailbreaks Clay out of the prison, murders him and the real IRA bigwigs, and stages it all so it all looks like a shootout so that he can all get away and the club is safe. By now, Tara is running scared because she has a murder pinned on her, and she's desperately trying to get herself and her kids away from the club, which is getting increasingly more dangerous. And Jax finds her, but he makes peace because he loves her and he offers to take the rap himself to protect her. Unfortunately, Gemma doesn't know anything about this, because nobody in the show ever uses a bloody phone when they actually need to. And then she thinks Tara ratted him out to the cops for immunity, and she brutally murders her in a drunken rage. And Juice, who's already on Jax's bad side, ends up stumbling into the murder scene, killing the police chief, and getting Gemma out of there along with a murder weapon, making sure that she can't be linked to it. And then Jax comes in and finds his dead wife lying in a pool of blood, and well, that's kind of the show up to date. So how are things starting off with season 7? Well, this is Sons of Anarchy, so of course everything starts with violence and music. In this case, Jax is actually in prison. He's in county, and he's putting a crazy nasty beatdown on this guy, including pulling out some of his teeth, and then going full Inglourious Bastards on him. Obviously, Jax is not a happy chap these days. Turns out this is just to get pally with Marilyn Manson. Yeah, really, that's Marilyn Manson there without the makeup, and he's playing some kind of Nazi gang bigwig. We're not entirely sure why Jax wants to be pally with him, but there's obviously a reason that'll come up later. Jax isn't in county for long though, because there's no evidence that he killed his wife, and there's no reason for him to take the rap for her anymore because she's already dead. So soon enough it's back to business as usual, and a lot of the episode is people reacquainting with each other, which is quite normal for the beginning of a TV series. One of the characters reacquainting with people is Jack's ex-junkie ex-girlfriend Wendy, who's newly out of rehab and wants to help look after her son and Jax and Tara's newly motherless baby. But when she gets home, she finds that Juice is hanging out in her apartment, hiding out from the rest of the motorbike gang and Jax. Turns out Gemma thought that she was going to be away for a wee while and gave Juice the key so he could hide. So it all goes a bit favours for favours. First with Gemma and Wendy, as leverage is kind of what women do in the show instead of using guns and fists. Well, some of the time. There's also a lot of schmoozing going on with the boys, because Jax wants to make peace, so he uses his mum's new boyfriend Nero to broker a meet and help him find out what's going on between the MC clubs, the Mayans and the Grim Bastards, who've got some deals to make, especially with the Chinese. Jax seriously needing to make up some ground with them after having them shot up at the end of last season by the Irish. But this is Sons of Anarchy, so obviously something else is going on underneath it all, and Jax invited everybody out to a big porno party at the warehouse. Now, at first you thought maybe it was going to be a massacre or something, but it's not. All the while that he's there, he's scoping out this big hefty Chinese henchman. You're not entirely sure why, until Gemma finally blurts out that it was him that she says she saw leaving Jax's house the night of Tara's murder, and then they have the Grim Bastards kidnap him. Of course, none of this is true. But Jax doesn't know that, and neither do the rest of the gang or the other MCs, and Gemma's just looking out for herself, because it doesn't matter to her if somebody else gets killed really horribly. Meanwhile, Wayne has wandered off to investigate some of the weird things he noticed earlier when he was at Wendy's flat, and he ends up getting caught by Juice and tied up. And continuing the tied up theme, the Chinese henchman that's been bound and gagged up at Jax's place, and he ends up getting brutally tortured for the murder of Tara, which he didn't even do, showing once again that Jax is really not a happy chap at all, as he murders the man horribly in the same way that his wife was killed. How's this all going to pan out? Probably tragically. So what did I think of the episode? Well, it's the start of a new season, and that's always going to be interesting. Everything's kind of picking up the pieces of where we were before and creating new narrative threads to show where things are going. Now, I like the fact that they're giving a little bit of ground to Tito and the Grim Bastards and seeing the fact that they're obviously having financial problems. And you're not sure at this point, are the Sons going to help them, or are the Sons just going to use this as leverage to destroy them utterly and get more ground? Now, there's weird things going on. Nero, he wasn't happy with Jax last season, but he seems to be, kind of trying to make peace and everything after the death of Tara, and because, he still loves Gemma. And then we've got the whole situation with Juice, and the whole situation going on between him and Wendy and Gemma, and now Wayne's been thrown into the mix, and we don't know what's going to happen to him. Is Juice going to kill him? We don't know. Juice is kind of a bit out there these days, kind of lost it. He's kind of on his own. But then again, Wayne's always been good at surviving. I mean, hell, this is a guy who was dying of cancer in season 1, and here we are 7 years later, and to be honest, if anything, he looks healthier than he was back then. As to complaints, well, this is a new series, and new series always have to start off with a bit of that setting things up, and that's fine, but things are starting to feel a little bit complacent. I mean, this is season 7. We've already had 7 seasons of the same kind of stuff. You always know that, oh look, there's going to be pretty girls, someone's going to get killed horribly, someone's going to be chased on a bike at some stage. I mean, it was a bit novel having the whole bit of the guy getting dragged behind the bike in the wheelchair. I mean, it was quite amusing, apart from the fact that the CGI was a bit ropey, but other than that, it was quite interesting. But it's still just all a bit, it's not clear where it's going, and there's a bit too many narrative threads. And the fact is, by this point in the story, does anybody actually believe a word Gemma says? And why do they? Because she's done nothing but lie for 7 seasons now. It's been ridiculous. The fact that Jax still believes what she says, and that everyone else goes along with her, is just kind of crazy. I mean, I know she's supposed to be this kind of, she's as much Lady Macbeth as she is Gertrude from Hamlet, but it has become a bit silly, and I know that also, it probably doesn't help that she is the wife of the guy who's the showrunner, so she's probably not going to be written out in the next 5 minutes, and it's building up to the point where she's obviously going to be the big main villain of the piece, and it's presumably all going to end horribly. An interesting point, though. Here's a weird prediction, and probably completely wrong, but I have a sneaking suspicion that this entire show is going to end up with all the main characters dead, and the only survivors possibly being Juice and Wendy, who are then going to end up raising up Jax's kids, and it's going to be exactly the same as the whole situation with Clay and Gemma raising up JT's son. I could be wrong about that, but there, I'll just put that out there now. But till next week, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions.